Thank you. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Last panel of the day in here, and we're going to get into some secrets of next-gen consumer social communities. I'm Amber. I am lifelong founder turned angel investor, and I currently serve as the head of strategic communities at Discord, helping creators, brands, businesses, and Web3 companies launch their community on Discord. So thank you so much, Catherine, for spending some time with me today to dive into some of these secrets. Do you want to give a brief introduction to Form Function, Nifty Generator, all of the things you've been working on?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And I'm Catherine. It's really nice to meet all of you. I am a designer and also the co-founder of Form Function. We are a Solana NFT marketplace that's eco-friendly and really designed around artists and indie creators. And yeah, I guess like my journey into kind of Web3 and all of this started because I was an artist myself, have also been a product designer. So before this was at Facebook and Instagram, kind of working on their anti-bullying initiatives. And got into Web3 just because I saw so much potential of NFTs for really helping out artists and creators who are operating solo, today managing 5 to 6 different income streams. And I felt like it was a really good space for us to start diving in and seeing how this new technology could help them.
Amazing. Well, considering that you are an artist, and one of our goals today is to give everybody in the audience some secrets for designing their community, why don't we start there? I think what I've seen in my career building communities at my last startup and now at Discord is that taking the time to design a space that you're really proud of for your community is just the first hallmark of a really engaged community. So how have you thought about designing the space for Form Function users and artists?
Yeah, I would say it is a very time-intensive and thought-intensive process. So we have a couple of different ways that we try to engage with our community. One is through Discord. So that's kind of our home base for our community. We have voting parties in there. Like the way that our company operates is that we're kind of like a DAO. So when new artists want to join our platform, they apply, and then the current artists and collectors on the platform kind of help us decide who to onboard by voting them in. So we have our voting parties in our Discord. We do all of our announcements there. We do game nights there. And then for kind of continuous engagement, we actually do Twitter Spaces every single day. So our head of community will invite guest speakers to Twitter, have our artists when they're closing up an auction. It's kind of like a big event for them. So inviting them to talk about their process and kind of their hopes for their work in the future. So yeah, I would say it's kind of like one, encouraging engagement amongst the community and the artists and helping them get to know each other, but also for us having a steady drumbeat of like engaging with them, helping them get to know our team and creating that space for that.
Yeah, I think that some of the best, whether it's a Telegram or Geneva or a Discord server, some of the best spaces that have designed communities feel like you're entering a physical place. One of my favorite Discord servers is it's the house party server, and you go and you can choose your identity. We've spoken so much today about like the future of next gen social being identity based, and you can choose who your identity is in this house party, and then you enter and you have a completely different like role playing experience. And we were chatting earlier about how history repeats itself in social, and a lot of what's happening now just feels like the return of IRCs and forums. It's very much like text-based, choose your own adventure. But I'm curious, how do you think about the difference of communities that are living on Facebook in Web3 versus Discord? Because you mentioned the other day that you went in and had a look at some of those communities, and it was just such a different experience.
Yeah, I try to do my diligence. So I joined a bunch of Facebook groups that were of NFT artists and NFT creators, and I felt like it was a very one-sided conversation there. I think the good thing about what Discord and kind of what Web3 has coalesced around is that it really feels like everyone is talking to each other. I mean, there's obviously benefits and trade-offs with that. So I think the benefit is that people really feel like they can have a real conversation and get to know each other. The trade-off is that it feels very 24/7 and like you always have to be on, which is its own problem that I think we need to talk about. But yeah, on Facebook, I really felt like it was people just shouting into the void, like posting about their art, but not getting too much feedback back. And it wasn't so much about getting to know each other as just like putting your own work out there. I think there's definitely a space for that, but yeah, I appreciate kind of the community aspect of it really being about getting to know one another and then forming like long-term connections instead of just short-term engagement.
I think, yeah, that is a critical difference between Web 2, Web 3 communities is just how incredibly personal it is. You know, as a founder, how do you deal with that? Because you're essentially, I'm sure there's some founders in the audience that's like, you can't just pay lip service to the fact that everyone knows that community is about having a conversation. That actually means that you are spending a lot of your time in the day speaking to your users all day, right?
Yeah, I would say the best part of my job, honestly, is like talking to our artists. I feel like because I'm an artist myself, like it doesn't really feel like work in that sense. Like I'm just getting to know other people and like they're becoming my friends. But yeah, it can also be a little bit exhausting when like your DMs are just like filled with people with like feature requests, like telling you what they like, what they don't like, all of it. So it's definitely something that I have to like manage my energy around. And basically, I try to set aside time in my day that's dedicated to that. So I guess like before, when our artist community was only a few hundred people, I would have office hours per week. So I would call them like casual artist chats. So artists on our platform could book like 15 minutes with me and just talk about anything, like ask questions, or just chat about their work and like how to promote it and stuff like that. And now, yeah, my inbox is like always open to our artists and collectors. And I would just say I spend like an hour per day just going through everything and making sure like they feel heard.
And before you launched Form Function, there was actually a couple of other projects that you built, right? There was the Microverse community.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think it's so interesting in the sense of how you sort of dog fooded a little bit, like what you were doing with Form Function, and how a lot of people now think that Form Function is an NFT project, whereas in fact it isn't. But it'd be interesting to.
Yeah, before Form Function, which is, I guess, a company, I worked on an NFT project called Microverse, and it was a mushroom-themed NFT project. The goal was also about getting more artists into Web3 and helping them kind of grow their journey from there. So we built like different tools for artists, helping them generate their collections without having to code or like get together this team of engineers. And yeah, it was a very interesting like first experience seeing how Web3 community works, and I feel like the whole like casual nature of it, a little bit of that has carried over to Form Function, where yes, like everyone knows who the founders are, like they know they can reach out to us directly. And yeah, another interesting aspect of that is like I feel like in Web3 people call everything a project. So they're like, oh, these NFT like JPEG projects are projects, but like these companies are also projects. They're just like different scales of projects. So yeah, it is a very interesting dynamic, and I think it's one where like people feel very open to just like reaching out to people and asking for help or like asking for advice. Whereas like in Web 2 world, I would never message like the founder of some service I was using and be like, can you please help me? So I like that dynamic, and I think it's really up to founders and like the team to manage their energy and their time.
Yeah, so maybe you just remove the word company. It's just not a company, it's just a project now. Yeah, I think one of the communities that has been really successful on Discord is Hot Topic. So they have a really thriving Discord server because it's not a Hot Topic server, it's an anime server hosted by Hot Topic. So I think the idea that people want to come together around niche, hyper niche shared interests, or around, fandom or creators that they love. So the idea that maybe your company isn't actually the home of the community, maybe it's a topic hosted by the company. That's a secret hack that we've seen is really driving a lot of engagement and growth in these communities.
Yeah, that's really cool. I wanted to ask you, like, from Zyper to Discord, kind of what have you seen in what works for building a community and starting communities?
I mean, so many things. At Zyper, I came out here, did Y Combinator, and our goal with Zyper was to help brands and businesses identify their top fans and then build these private chat-based communities for them to interact with the brand and each other. And I think many lessons we learned. First is that the first interactions that somebody has in a community predict the community engagement. So if you are joining the community and you're immediately welcomed and you find value, at Discord we think about it in terms of like the 15 minutes of talking. We want to get a user to speak for 15 minutes, whether it's in an audio chat or on text, and then we can predict that they're a much more engaged user. And I saw that at Zyper as well. It's the interactions, the first impression that somebody has when joining your community is a massive predictor of how successful that community will be on an engagement basis. So welcoming, and then I think also having a shared outcome. I don't know if anyone has been following Our Place, the Reddit community, but the idea is that there's a shared canvas, and everybody in the community can contribute to the canvas, and it was recently erased, which the community did together. But having a shared outcome or something to work towards really facilitates conversation versus it just becoming like a support channel or like a shill my thing channel. But I think you do such a great job of that. I was a member of Mycoverse, and I thought it was so welcoming all the time, and it felt so friendly. Do you find that like the welcoming part is important for you in form function, or?
Yeah, for sure. I would say, yeah, even like in my own experiences joining new communities, I have a really positive, lasting impression of ones where like I joined and like 3 people were just like, hi, welcome. Like, it just makes you feel so much like, oh, people actually like want me to be here. So one thing that we actually do is like use roles to help facilitate that feeling of like belonging. So we have roles for artists, for collectors, and then we have a special role for verified creators, which is basically people who have gone through the application process and been accepted onto the platform. So they all have their own spaces, and I feel like when they join, everyone else is very welcoming. They're like, hi, like how are you doing? Like, what's your first piece of art that you're gonna launch? And I feel like it just makes it feel more than a company and a platform where you're uploading your work, which I feel like all art platforms historically have been pretty removed from the community part, and we're trying to bring that into the experience of being an artist on our platform, along with like the game nights and everything like that.
I think like that's very reminiscent of game design, like architecting your community space like a game. Like, what are the roles? Like having secret levels that you can unlock. I think this idea of myth creation is so interesting in all communities, whether it's the Step Chicken cult community on TikTok that's like thriving in all the comments, or whether it's a Discord community or Telegram or Geneva, which is a really awesome platform that's it's building in the secrets of. I guess in Web 2, you're thinking about building an audience, and that's so different from building a community. You're not trying to get everybody into the form function community, right? Like, there's a barrier to entry for a reason. And I think that's sometimes a challenge when we've been speaking to companies, is this sort of old playbook of what success is. It's not just, well, how many people are joining the community every week. It's a much longer road to success.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like the qualitative numbers don't matter as much as like qualitatively how much belonging people feel. We actually don't track any numbers in our Discord at all, or even our Twitter. Like, obviously it's great if more people are following us, but what we look at is just like how many people are posting about like their work and how form function has helped them. Like, I feel like those things are much more important to us.
Yeah, I mean, that is true for all the communities that we're involved in, that there's less of a quantitative measure. It's just a qualitative, like, how does this feel? Like, are people getting value? We do a lot of surveys, like, do people feel it's a valuable community? So we know that one of the key secrets to success is finding a great community manager. Like harmony in a community is finding a great community manager and having moderators. So how did you find your community manager?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of top of mind. Like, actually, I feel like when new companies are forming, like the first thing people think of is like hiring more engineers, which obviously, yes, we're also hiring engineers, but community manager and having someone to kind of lead those efforts was just as top of mind for us. So actually, we put out a call for everyone, but I think what really works is like finding someone who's already engaged in your community without having that official role, and then reaching out to those people specifically and being like, hey, we're actually looking for someone in an official capacity. Like, how do you feel about it? Like, we already really love what you're doing to like welcome people and engage with people. So that really worked for us in Mycoverse, actually. We found our community manager that way. On Form Function, it was someone who was already very active in the crypto art community, and they were kind of talking with us. So we just ended up chatting and saw it was a really, really good fit. But yeah, it was definitely a matter of like vetting all of their social profiles as well, because in this remote hiring world, it's like you can only get to know someone so much. So part of their personality is like, what are they saying online? And especially for head of community, which is such a public role, and they're going to be representing your company. Yeah, we went through and like looked at every tweet since they made since the beginning of time, just to see like how do they talk with people when people are having a tough time. Like, what is the way that they respond? So yeah, just like really digging into the details and trying to figure out whether that person would be a good representative.
Yeah. And I remember doing that with you.
Yes, that was really helpful.
And how, you know, as you think about the Form Function community growing, how do you imagine like resourcing that? Will you have more than one community manager? Like, how do you think about the like moderators? Did moderators have a separate channel? You know, how are they incentivized?
Yeah, exactly. So I think we will grow to a point where we need more moderators. Right now, it's almost self-moderated in some aspects because our verified artists really care about the community, and if they see weird stuff going on, not just on our Discord, but even on our platform, if they're like, hey, this artist applied and like their work does not look like their own, like I know who made this work and it's not the applicant, they'll actually bring it up. So in some ways, like it is self-moderating because people care so much about maintaining like the integrity of the community. But yeah, I think like as we think about moderators, it's a combination of, you know, getting people in different time zones, people who speak different languages, because we have a very international community. A lot of our artists are from Europe, from South America, from Asia. So also having people who can be welcoming and answer questions and help people feel comfortable who are speaking different languages.
Yeah, part of the work that I'm doing at the moment is like international expansion, and just the idea that it's great in the beginning to have separate areas for, you know, your French speakers or German speakers to be in the community, but actually at some point it might warrant just having a separate community space to, if you know, you're really trying to facilitate belonging and utility, like a separate space might be interesting at some point.
Yeah, for sure. We actually have channels for different languages, especially the ones where we feel like we have a ton of artists, for example, in Indonesia. So having specific channels where they can connect and talk to each other is really important.
Yeah, nice. And curious, you know, are there any communities that you have come across recently that have inspired you or that you like spending time in? Like one for me is, I always think about Rapha, the cycling brand, because they have obviously the products, but they have the physical places where you can go and meet others and form your roots together and have a coffee, but then you can also bring that back online. And you obviously see this happening so much with NFTs, is that it's the utility of giving you access to a physical experience right now. But how have you thought about like other communities that have inspired you?
Yeah, I would say there's kind of like the digital communities and then the IRL communities that are crossing over into digital. So for digital, like I feel like these NFT projects like Skeleton Crew have actually been really inspiring, because I mean, that was one Discord where I joined and everyone was like asking, like saying hello, asking questions. Like I had my website linked in my Discord bio, so people actually like went in there and like looked at my projects and were asking about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like everyone actually wants to get to know each other here. So that was like a really good first experience. In terms of like real life communities, there's a couple. Like I'm in this Women in Web3 community called We3 in San Francisco, and I feel like they're doing something really interesting where they're also thinking about bringing NFTs into the experience as like a ticket to dinner clubs and like getting to know more people. So I feel like just thinking more about that like physical digital divide is going to be a big thing in the future.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and then just curious from like a founder journey point of view, this is your first startup. Like, how any advice that you would give around launching community today? Like, is there anything you would have done differently looking back around form function?
I think the biggest thing, and I think this is something that we actually did do inadvertently, is to start with a really small community. So when we launched our company with 24 artists. So obviously, like 24 is a very small number. Like we want to grow much beyond that and already have. But the very first day that we launched, we purposely kept it really small and said, okay, we're going to pick 24 people who we love their work, like we really trust them, they know who we are, and they can talk to us at any time. And we started the community with just that handful of people. And I feel like because they all knew each other and it was such a small group, they were talking amongst themselves, sharing their work, sharing what happened over the weekend. And when more people joined in after that, they were like, oh, even though this is a really small community, it's like really active and people seem to like each other here, which I think is another big thing where you see people talking to each other as if they know each other, right? So they'll say like, oh, like, hey, how was, that thing that you talked about last time? Like, how's that project going? And then when newcomers join, they're like, oh, people are actually like doing things together here. So I think that was extremely important. Like if we had just put out a call on our Twitter and been like, everyone join our Discord, and starting it from scratch there, I think it would have been really chaotic and much different. And starting it small and then having it be healthy and then expanding it, I think was really helpful.
I think that is just one of the key secrets to a good community funnel is getting a small amount of people to talk.
Yeah.
And then have conversations that ultimately lead to friendship. Because when you have friendship in the community, you feel an obligation to show up every day and keep it a vibrant space.
Exactly.
I think, some of the best communities that I see have that as like an integral foundation, is they want to help people talk, have, valuable conversations that then lead to friendship. Really does work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like the goal isn't just to get people talking per se, but really to help them get to know each other in a way that helps them in the future. So for example, our artists have done a lot of collaborations together. Like a lot of them were part of that first initial 24 artists in our platform. So yeah, it's really cool to see it kind of go beyond just getting to know each other and actually get into like, we can do things together that have like a concrete outcome for like, not just their friendship, but like their career even. Yes,
that's such a big theme, isn't it? It's like the power of the people is greater than the people in power. Like people can congregate in community and make things happen. Another trend that I've been seeing is just, if anybody here is in Discord or multiple Telegrams, like it's just so overwhelming to keep up to date with all of the chat that's happening. And digests are becoming a trend. It's just, a community manager will send everybody in the community an email saying, hey, here's what happened in the community this week. Like, this is what you missed. So that's one feature that I think is just interesting in terms of keeping people up to date and then rerouting them back to your community. Is there any kind of feature or trend that you're seeing right now happen? Or that you would like to exist?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think the digest trend is good. I mean, I feel like we're all really overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed by the number of like Discord servers that I'm in. I think, actually like returning to a way where you can have kind of that super synchronous communication like on Discord, but also a method for people to check in periodically, I think is really important. For us, like we're actually thinking about that on our platform, like when artists are building their community of collectors, the kind of a things that they have available to them today are like they could start their own Discord server, which is a lot of work. For one artist, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense because they feel like they have to make it active all the time, and it's just like them being overwhelmed by that pressure. So one thing that we're thinking about is like for different sizes of communities, different types of communities, like is asynchronous actually better? Like should we return to a place where artists can share what they're doing and then collectors can give feedback like asynchronously and not have it feel like a chat messaging system where you have to be online all the time. So yeah, I think like it's less about like creating new ways of communicating and more about being thoughtful that like not something that works for a company is not going to work for everyone. So there's probably like better channels depending on like the size of the community that you're building and like who your audience is.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at measuring success, it's not just how many people are active in the community every day or like talking. It's actually, people can go back and forth in that funnel where I might join the community just to read and I get utility from it, and then the next time I join, I actually want to, you know, join one of your stage channels or interact. And yeah, I think that's why it's still such a nascent space in terms of measuring success and why it has to be so qualitative, because people are getting value at all different stages of that funnel. But I like what you said about it being potentially ephemeral, because we definitely see you know, like pop-up communities happening and being really cool spaces. Like one of the things that we did was help Chipotle do a hiring fair on Discord, and it was like a 2-day event, and they had, you know, a burrito bot giving away burrito codes. They had like guac masters telling secrets and stage channels, and there was 24,000 job applications from that 2-day event. But I think it was an interesting example of how you can actually be ephemeral, but they can be recurring. You know, maybe it's like every month you pop up with this community, and then there's an IRL element to it too.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you think about like IRL communities, like you might meet up once a month or something and do something together, and it feels like you have a great sense of belonging, but you're not also texting each other like 24/7 throughout the rest of the month after the event is over. So I think it makes a lot of sense actually, and I was thinking about this for DAOs as well. You know, like a DAO usually has a common goal. When that goal is accomplished, like what happens to the DAO? Like, is it okay if it just dissolves? And I think the answer is yes. Like, I feel like there should be more acceptance that like not all communities have to be active 24/7 forever into the future. Like it's totally okay to come together for some common goal and then like dissolve after that and then come back together if you want to do something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see tons of like pop-up communities do that, where all the channels might then go to read only and there's one, you know, chat channel open until the next like big event. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I know we have like a couple of minutes left. Hello. So do we want to do Q&A?
Sure, Mike's using the bathroom because I'm mortal. I know there were a lot of questions about my mortality. Sorry, it's a bad bathroom joke. Anyway, happy to facilitate. Ladies, that was lovely, by the way. That was very lovely. Who's inspired? It's a good place to start. Who has a question? Just go ahead and keep your hands up. Beautiful Blazer, back to you.
I'll say loudly. You talked about brand interactions being a great tool without having to name names. Where have you seen brand interactions go well? Maybe where has brand interactions fallen off the cliff? And do you see this as a space for brands, or is that really sort of like a bastardization of the point of like a closed community? So that's an open question for both of you.
That's a great question. I mean, and I think that there are ways that brands can create really valuable communities, but too many brands still think of it just as like a quick marketing campaign and then there's nothing else. Chipotle was a very long process of figuring out with them, like, how is this going to be a pop-up but still drive a ton of value? And the point was, we're going to help more people get jobs at Chipotle, and that was the point of the community. So I think that brands can work if there's truly like a clear purpose for why it's existing, and it's not just lip service to, oh, we need a community, but they're not understanding the huge amount of investment that it is to facilitate like having conversations. Did you want to?
Yeah, no, I think that really covers it. I feel like having a purpose is the most important thing, because if any other brand like just came in, they were like, we're creating a community online, like people join us, I feel like people wouldn't know what to talk about. So it's really important to have that like leading goal and like have that be front and center for everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, everybody should know why they're in the room. It's like same thing here. You should know why you're in there, or hopefully you know why you're here. That's what it's about. All right. Oh, upper deck. Let's go. We haven't gone up there in a minute. I see you too. Don't worry. We'll go upper deck here for both of y'all. We got time for everybody's question. There's no cramp on this side, so don't worry. We'll get to you. Yeah.
Thanks for the very interesting conversation. I was wondering, so you described this kind of interplay between the community on Discord or a separate tool, and then you talked about your platform, and that's where your users are sort of trying to achieve their goal. I'm wondering if this is kind of a temporary situation that we have, that these two things are kind of separate, right? We manage our users in a community, and then we have them use the platform and get benefit. Do you see this staying separate forever, or will this converge and will this sort of be one thing eventually?
Yeah, I guess to clarify, do you mean like having the Discord be separate from like what the artists are trying to build with their communities?
So you are building a product, right?
Mhm.
It's a marketplace.
Yeah.
And then this is where your users are sort of doing their thing, and then you manage them in a separate tool on Discord.
Ah, got it. Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, so first of all, just data-wise, like you would want to know in the community what people are doing on the product and vice versa. But then also just the interaction itself, it could somehow converge eventually.
Yeah. No, that's a really great point. I mean, I feel like part of it is out of necessity, because like for us, we're such a small company that if we were also to build this huge like community tool, it would just be very, very difficult. But I do understand what you're saying about like, yeah, things are happening on product, and like that it seems natural for things to happen in the same place. I think that's what we want to do with helping our artists build their communities on our platform. Like for them to take all of their audience to a different platform like Telegram or Discord is like way too much work. So if they can have their collectors be collecting their pieces on Form Function, and then also have their communication with their collectors happen on our platform, I think that makes a ton of sense. But for kind of the many-to-many communication of like everyone in our community talking to each other, like hosting voting parties and game nights and stuff, I think it would be extremely hard to like build that onto our platform. So yeah, I think there's like definitely aspects of it that make sense to combine, and then aspects where it's just like it's better to use tools that we have out of the box.
So this is maybe how this Discord gets disrupted, right? Somebody figures out how to kind of implant this into products directly, right?
Yeah, I think.
I think there's a hypothesis there. I'll speak as a lifetime content creator. I mean, we have people who use Medium as a blogging platform because they don't want to use the WordPress blogging platform. The barrier of entry there is pretty low in terms of complexity. So I think it's going to take a paradigm shift to change that behavior fundamentally, because communities need about 1,000 people before they're really anything. I mean, they're sweet and they're quaint and they're lovely, but they're not self-feeding until they're over 1,000 people with ideas and doing things, historically speaking. So I'm a fan of the tools. We'll see. I mean, it would definitely be a disruptor, but then you also have to think about the behavior change of folks too. So anyway, love to see how you solve that problem. I'm fascinated. Okay, I know I said you next.
All right, awesome. So I love what you were saying about building a community early with a small cohort and really driving that quality of conversation before you talk about the quantity of conversation. You talk about the first 24 artists that you brought on. How did you kind of propose a value proposition to them? And being, you're offering such a small community, you're like, we're only bringing in 23 other people. How do you drive conversation? Like, what is the goal that you propose to them? And how did you kind of expand that over time?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of just like making it very clear what we were trying to build, and also just like like being on the ground and doing the work. So one of them was just like, yeah, how did we reach out to the first 24 people? Like, why do they trust us? They were actually like people that we had spent like weeks, if not months, like trying to build connections with. Like when we first got into the Solana art space, like I was just really keeping an eye out for like who are the artists who have the biggest voices here, like who's actually like doing the work every day to like get their voice out there. And then I reached out to them without the pretense of being like, we're starting a company, like join our community, and just getting to know them more on like an artist's level and being like, hey, I'm new here, like I also make art, like want to get to know you. And yeah, it was truly before actually we wanted to start the company, so there was no like false pretense there. And then when the time came and we were like, oh, actually we found an idea that we really wanted to work on, it involves artists. We actually already had all of these friends in the space, and it was basically a matter of just reaching out and being like, hey, like we want to do this. We think it would be really cool to build this platform that's specifically around independent artists, and I feel like you would be a great fit because X, Y, and Z of what you're doing in the space. So yeah, I think it was a lot less about having to convince them as just being like, you already know me, like we're friends, here's what I want to do, and like here's what I think you could do, and if you're interested, like let me know. So yeah, it was very organic.
I love that point. Someone wrote a book about this, and they're much smarter than me, but your network is your net worth. It's a really good example of that. So start building relationships with people before you need anything from them. I realize that goes without saying, and give first on that, even if that's giving a compliment. You are someone we have identified as a really awesome person, and we would like to have you on our platform. Well, now that my ego's flattered, I'm at least going to respond to your email. Feels great. You can say the same things about your MC. All right. Puffer, and then I see you too. Don't worry.
Awesome. So for communities that have traditionally thrived in real life, and I'm in the wine industry, so that is something
Cheers.
where, cheers. Where obviously you're consuming a physical product. Sommeliers thrive in a hospitality-driven environment. We have a really strong community of sommeliers. What's your advice for kind of creating community online, not in real life, when traditionally kind of people have thrived more in person?
Well, I would 100% start with like architecting that digital community space like it's a physical space. Like you can have the cellar, you can have behind the bar, you can have, X other wine reference, different regions, like make it feel like it's a physical space, or, take inspiration from a game. Because I think that part of architecting it so it feels like a place that you're proud of, that they feel connected to already, I think is just step one. And then step two is I guess many of the other things we mentioned is like giving them a specific role, showing them where to go, ritualizing the community. So like every Friday you have Burgundy night or whatever it is, and giving them a purpose. Like, why are they in there? Why am I going to join that community? Is it because I want to look at new labels, or is it because what am I doing there? And I think defining that, the purpose, the shared outcome, what it's going to be designed and ritualized like first, is a good place to start. Because there's tons of, there's the whiskey communities that thrive because people are sharing their tips. So I think that it's clearly there's such a big opportunity. Yeah.
I'm a wino, so I'm just going to chime in here and also have a talk about the power of networking, about the power of wine and networking, which I think is really important. I would ask, what is it offering them that they're not getting somewhere else? And is that so I run a community called the What the Fuck Club. You are all welcome to join. It's literally the WTF.club. It is a private community where we welcome all words, thoughts, and feelings. That you have wins, thoughts, and feelings, excuse me. So that means during the pandemic, it felt really weird to brag. Yeah, so we made a room so you can brag and just say, I fucking did great shit today. And we all tell you how beautiful you are and fucking smart, and we love that. Then there's a room for I really failed at this and I don't want to tell anyone publicly because I may be followed by my investors or my mom or my boyfriend or whatever the fuck. So you just go and then I just had this thought that might be wildly inappropriate. Well, they're your thoughts or whatever that is. So there's a safe space, very psychologically safe space, the WTF Club. And the reason I created that community is because of the reasons I just listed. We didn't have a safe space to talk about all this shit during the pandemic, so I created an encrypted Telegram chat where we could do just that. If you violate the rules, you are cursed with chapped lips, bad tasting coffee, and shitty sex for the rest of your life. I say that also to bring up, use your ban hammer well. The biggest mistake I see with community builders, I've been doing it for a decade, is people do not ban toxic energy. Get that shit the fuck out of your community immediately. You are not appealing to anyone by letting that sit. Fuck freedom of speech. Forget all of that. That's bullshit. Bad people should not be in your community making other people feel bad. If they have a question or they're being disruptive, cool, it's great, have conversation. You can let people back into a community. Let me tell you, when I did ICOs and token generation events, you ban those motherfuckers as fast as you can, or else they are going to completely flip your entire chat, especially when you're talking in the crypto and NFT space where people are hyper active and always engaged all day long. So be conscious about that. Use the tools that you have in you. Not everyone is going to like you as the moderator, and that's okay. Guess who will like you? The people who feel safe participating in your community, which is great. All right, I know there's a question right around. Yes, green pants.
This is for Catherine. I hope this is not too far into the weeds because I run a marketplace, but how do you deal, or how do you consider marketplace circumvention when you're choosing to grow on other platforms? Like if people are talking on Discord or Telegram, is that a problem for you? Do you have people that say things like, oh, I'd rather just do business on OpenSea instead?
Yeah.
Question, just for those who might not have been able to hear that, is how do you manage cross-platform conversation? So if people are spending time somewhere else and you want them in your space, what are you thinking about? How do you manage it?
Yeah, for us, surprisingly, it's not a big problem because artists really want to show history of their work on our platform. So because it is a curated platform, it's kind of like the home for all of their art. And if they did it off-platform, either through just a direct trade or somewhere else, I guess OpenSea now has Solana, so they could do it. They wouldn't be able to show the same provenance history. So I think that's actually really important to creators and one reason why they don't do it. But I can see that happening for other marketplaces. My general opinion though is part of the whole theory behind Web3 is we want to make it interoperable, right? Things should be able to move across different marketplaces, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just because of the way that all of this NFT stuff works, there is no moat in terms of people moving their NFTs to another platform, and I think that's fine. And the moat is actually more about the community and the feeling that they have about building their work on one platform, rather than some technical thing that we do to prevent them from doing that. Yeah.
Oh, hello. Yes. Question just for the audience is, how do you scale your onboarding when you're crushing it and you've got a bunch of people joining all the time in your Discord?
Well, the solution is not a bot. We've seen that go wrong many times where, the communities with 400,000 plus people in, and instead of having other humans welcoming, they try and use a welcoming bot. And the users that get that experience will leave. It's just amazing. If you continue to build out the mod team, continue to build out more community managers, and give them the role of welcoming and guiding them in their first impression, they will become more retained users. And that's, I wish there was a simpler solution to that, but it really is the case of it has to feel welcoming. I think also, something that's undervalued is re-architecting the community design when you get to that level of scale. Some of the servers that we've seen just can maintain a really healthy engagement rate is when they hit certain membership milestones, they actually redesign the server. And that's awesome because it keeps the community engaged. It feels oh wow, it's a new experience, but it also can then cater to the scale. Obviously, the design of community should probably be a little bit different when it's 100 people versus 100,000.
Well stated. I love that. The thing, actually, just to really emphasize that point, in the beginning, do the unscalable. It's going to take a lot. You might be the CEO getting asked by the user how to fix this problem. Troubleshoot it for them. You know what they won't forget? That the CEO answered that question. And no, when your investors ask, is that going to be possible to do when you have 10,000 users? Fuck no. Do we have them today? No. So I'm ensuring that the quality of the experience today is as incredible as it can be, and we will architect the solution for that in the future when we need to architect it for 10,000 people. So always do the right thing. I hate that. That term, it's not scalable, sometimes makes me want to vomit in the valley. It's like, yeah, neither are humans, but we still somehow manage to exist. Cheers. Yes. We're going to do last question here, and then get ready because you all need to do a really. I'm sorry, I just called on him. I feel terrible. Okay, we'll do two. That look was too deep. Okay, we'll do two more questions because my soul can't take that after a pandemic of no humans. So we'll do two last questions. Then we'll do a little round of applause, and then I will close you out with some closing notes, and then send you on your way. But all right, fine gentleman over here. How can you use events to onboard new members?
This is a great question. I think events are such a key part of ritualizing your community. So, Catherine's doing Twitter Spaces every day. Like, events keep it fresh and, give other members in the community an opportunity to get value in the most fundamental community way, which is by having a shared experience. So I think that having a regular schedule of events, so it literally can just be an image of these are the events that are happening, and then driving scheduled hype on all your other platforms is key. Something that we do for all business brands or creators that come to Discord is we give them this sort of checklist of here's how you need to consistently promote your Discord, and just thinking about every touch place in the user journey of where they would discover your community. And a big part of that is having a regular event to ritualize it. And it's also a great way to cross-pollinate with other communities. Right? So it's we're doing an event this Friday with this X massive gaming community, and there's this giveaway element, or there's something, just to go back to the anime sector, something that works really well is bringing in voice actors from the anime fandoms to run events. So I think it's key to growing the community and providing value for existing members.
Great question, great answer there. And just want to piggyback on that with the event side of things and the low-key partnerships. It's a great way to get a testimonial from someone who doesn't legally want to give you a testimonial. So go ahead and invite that partner that has decided maybe they can't give you a case study or they won't cross-promote onto your weekly thought leadership chat about whatever your industry is. And guess what they're going to do? Be associated with you by association. And there are ways to get around some of the loopholes in red tape, especially if you're working with larger corporations, to get that social proof. That association is really what you want. It doesn't matter if they actually said exactly the thing that you're expecting to hear. All right, beautiful purple jacket. It's all you. Great question that I bet a lot of people are wondering. Half the reason I'm repeating these is because they're recording, so it'll be on the recording. Just FYI, I do believe you can all hear. Just want to make that clear. As an early NFT artist, how do you get started? Where do you find your people? What do you do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think there's a couple of things. One is, I would say Discord is a good place, but Twitter is maybe even a better place to find your community. I think because there's more of the visual element and people just sharing each other's stuff, it's a really good place where I've heard artists say oh, when I first get into this, I want to meet more people. They'll just start replying to other artists' posts and being hey, love this, or this really reminded me of some memory I had, or something like that. And then if the artist that you're talking to replies back, then you can kind of start a DM with them, be hey, just wanted to say I just really love your work. I'm new, getting started. What advice do you have? So I think that's one thing, which is just like starting to engage with people and see who responds, and then starting to make those connections into like longer term things. But I also like, yeah, if you are interested in like Discord art communities, I know a ton of them where it's for NFT artists who are getting started, like looking for advice and working together. So I think, yeah, it's just like finding your people through many different channels.
I like that. Good answer. Twitter. I have a theory about Twitter. No one is as close to anything in their life if they're a famous person than they are their Twitter handle. A lot of people are actually right there. There's publicists that manage their Instagram and their Facebook and all that other jazz, or their TikTok. They're there on Twitter. So like send that message, send that DM, and flatter. People think people don't read the comments. Let me tell you, most people read the nice things you say about them. And it's a nice little parlay. All right, I know I said that was the last question, but you're all being really patient. Okay, we'll do one more, and then this is it. This has to be it. Yes, fine young man in the back. That sounded different than I meant it to sound. Question is, how do you start marketing your NFT art?
Yeah, definitely.
Small question.
Never pay for
digestible.
promotions. Whoever like messages you being like, I can promote your thing, like just ignore it. I would never, any influencers, anything like that, I would like 100% stay away from. I think organic is definitely the way to go. Like even if you see really slow growth at the beginning, whether you're working on a project or like you're doing like one-of-one art, I think even if you're growing super slowly at the beginning, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm making no traction, I get like 1 follower a day. I think that's better than like paying for an influencer, because what I've seen with a lot of my friends who run NFT projects and stuff like that, like if they start organically, at some point they're going to hit like, okay, I have 50 people in the community who are really passionate and like they see that we're doing this for the right reasons, and they're going to start spreading the word. If you start with a community of like 500 people who don't really care and they don't know why they're there because they just clicked on some influencer's button, they're going to leave, and I've just seen those communities get really spammy. So definitely not going the promotion route and going down the organic path. And then I think the other thing is just like thinking of creative ways to like get in touch with people who seem interested in your work. So for example, as an artist, like if you're running an auction, a lot of artists will just reach out to the person who wins the auction. And then they'll be like, hey, like you collected my work, thank you so much, like I appreciate your support. But one smart thing to do is actually to contact everyone else who bid who didn't win, because that means they're interested and maybe they want to get to know you, and you just have to open that door to them. So I think just like thinking about not just the obvious thing of like who to reach out to, but just like everyone who could be interested is another good method.
Yeah, I think I have way too many feelings about influencer marketing in general. I think I can say this without violating too many NDAs. From my very direct experience working with the most famous people in the industry, or picking up the scraps from the most famous people in the industry to actually run a proper project, unless said influencer, and they could be micro or macro, is truly invested in your project, if they are a true member of your community, you can see this with Alexis Ohanian and Serena Williams as an example. He has a lot of punks, crypto punks, who look like Serena, and he puts them into actually physical products. He wore a pin to the Met Gala last year, I think it was. But it's a great example of someone who is an influencer in the space. But he is also genuinely invested in that project, and not just because he's an NFT owner, but because he cares about their mission and the rest of it. If you are paying someone to share or to tweet 3 times or to do something like that, your ROI is going to be absolutely jacked. You're not going to get there. There's nothing to hold that up. It's just kind of a leaf in the wind rather than a nice firm tree. And even if your tree is small, you want those roots, and that's what your community is. So, yeah, I think that's great. All right, everyone, the biggest round of applause you absolutely can right now for Amber and Catherine. Thank you both so much.